When you have a dispensational view of the world and history, um, it's usually a negative view of the world. It's a negative view of the future. And so I bump into this a lot when I talk to people, and especially believers who don't see the world like, for example, like you can never ever get to truth because there's always a government, covering it up. And it's true, there is a lot of cover up. I know there is. I'm sure there's a lot more than we know. But this is why debates are so important to me, because when you listen to a debate on a specific topic, you will hear another side that you didn't know before. There will be lots of arguments to show that governments do cover up certain things. And even translations of the Bible have been changed because of governments. But we have so much information today that those who are just sitting by and just giving up hope, saying, well, we'll never know the truth. Well, if you're not getting into the forum of ideas and listening to those discussions and listening to all the arguments from both sides of a specific topic, then you're never going to know. You could stay there and just be skeptical all your life and be miserable. But unless you really want to know, you're going to do the homework. You're going to do the research. You got to get into these theological discussions in these debates, or else you're just like everybody else in the world that just sits in church and does nothing at all and speculates, is miserable, and don't understand that there is truth out there, and you have to do the homework. You have to do the homework. The Bible talks about things being covered up. The Bible talks about governments being corrupt. So I already agree with all this stuff. But if you're not getting into the realm of ideas and listening to these debates and writing notes and hearing opposing views, you're not going to exercise your brain to have proper biblical discernment. You're not. You're not even exercising that way to do so. Someone who's an amateur coming into these debates, listening to a discussion, it's going to be really hard to understand unless you're constantly doing it every day. Just like when you're a critical thinker, you are using that critical thinking every day. When you're listening to the news, you're using that critical thinking from the biblical worldview every single day. I could catch an argument or a narrative that someone's painting on the news, and I know they're full of crap right from the second they say it, because they're presupposing certain things that they haven't given evidence for. They've only supposed that. And so you got to get in these debates. I learned more from a debate, one debate, 2-hour debate, more than I've ever learned in a church service for 15, 20 years. Yeah, I'm telling you. I'm saying in a typical church service, don't give you this stuff. You got to go to a Bible college. You got to go to a seminar, right? I went to many seminars at Biola University and listened to good discussions. I've heard debates there. Everything you think of. Arguments for the mind and Christianity and how we should think about it. And what does the Bible say? What are the presuppositions of the apostles, the prophets, etc.? I mean, there's so many things we can go to. But yes, I've learned more from one 2-hour debate than 10,000 church services. 10,000 typical American church services. Yeah. Most people don't know the Bible. They don't care about it. But they want to speculate about it, but they don't want to do the homework and actually do the research. Get into the original languages. Find out why a certain translation was translated a certain way. You've got to do the homework. You're not going to reach the skeptical lost if you're just sitting there making claims yourself about God, but you don't even have no evidence for it. You need to win the secular culture. This is why I have this debate page. It's called Atheism Defeated. We defeat the secular world by what arguments? And somebody says, oh, arguments are not spiritual. Yes, they are. Every single argument, every temptation a person has is because they were tempted or deceived by their own flesh, by the world, that whatever they were being tempted to do was a good idea. They were tempted by arguments. That's what the enemy uses. Arguments. This is why the whole Bible is full of arguments. I'm not talking about arguing, two people yelling at each other. No, I'm talking about logical arguments that come to a certain conclusion based off certain premises. So I'm just saying we got to be critical thinkers. The Bible doesn't tell us to be lazy. The Bible tells us to prove all things. All right, God bless.